So, oh, go for it.
But the chemistry lesson was quite similar to ones we have in England, because they were kind of just doing theory on the board, so they were doing the masses of different elements and the molecular mass if you have to put different elements together. And so that was interesting to see, because we've all done that in school and it was quite similar. But what was different was that there was almost no individual work, so at no point did they say, right, do these questions. It was all kind of call and response. It was just like one big conversation. And also I was quite surprised that they were doing it in year 9. I don't think I remember doing that. It was class 9. I don't think I remember doing that until year 10. So that was good. And I really liked how everyone was involved, and the teacher kept stopping and saying, do you understand, do you understand? And they all answered as a whole. And Portuguese we also visited, and that was interesting because it was similar to our English lessons in a way, in that they were kind of dissecting poems. In this case it was a national anthem, and they were looking at it and looking at the poetic techniques, and we noticed the words for metaphor and simile and personification, which is things that we do in English as well, which is quite funny. Except that you have to remember that Portuguese for them is actually a foreign language. They get taught it, but actually for many of them what they speak at home and the first language that they speak is Xangana, which is the national language, which is a kind of regional language. And so they do a lot more grammar for that reason than we do in English. So we went to a Portuguese lesson where they were doing different forms of grammar.
Okay, so out of all the lessons that you saw, what lesson stood out to you as, actually you can talk about 2 lessons, what lesson stood out to you as the most similar to England? If you've already mentioned it, you can say that. What lesson stood out to you as really different from what we do at Twyford?
What was really different was the amount of grammar that they did, be it in English or in Portuguese. And also I found music quite similar, in that they were doing different styles of dance, and I remember doing that in year 7, and it's quite similar, except that the way they contributed, the way that they just got up and danced and sang. I mean, I wouldn't have done that. I don't think there are many people that would just stand up and dance, especially with strangers in the room. And also I think there's quite a lot of learning by rote, which we don't really have at all. So like in this music class, the teacher asked them to tell them the regions of Mozambique, and they just did it like that, and they did it all in unison and all in the same order, which really shows you that the way they learn it is by doing that rather than writing it down and memorising it. So that was really different, and probably I'd say that the most similar lesson was chemistry, because of the content was the same. And I guess that's probably true of most sciences because it's kind of international. So when we visited physics, lots of the experiments were quite similar, even though they were possibly more basic. They were the same experiments as we'd done.